my work, so we'll go right to questions. That way I get everybody's questions answered, and I can get back to where I was.
Anything reveal itself in film review about run game struggles?
Ours? Well, we were better. We were 4.3 on running back runs. So we were actually better in this game than we've been all year. In comparison of who we are, who we were, who they are in that game, it was better.
What about on the flip side, stopping the run?
Well, if there's two ways to look at that. We got out of position. We either had a blown call or miscommunication on 3 of the big plays. That's the good news. Meaning that if we would have, I'd like to think if we had the right call or the communication was better, we could have limited, maybe not had, 50 times, 80 yards maybe in the first half. Bad news is we didn't get it communicated right. Good news is we should be able to fix that.
Is that obviously an important thing going into this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. The game hadn't changed much. If you're not, unless you're playing Mike Leach, you got to stop the run. You got to run the ball effectively. That's pretty much everybody. I'm guessing that's what other teams do. That's what we try to get accomplished. Texas was trying to do that, and we were trying to do the same to them.
Two things, Mike. I talked to Tom Luganville yesterday, and after the game, he said, as you guys were talking, you talked about the adjustment up front on the counter, on their counter.
Mm-hmm.
So to talk a little bit about what you did there. I know Coach Mason talked about bringing an extra man into the box. Second thing is, because Texas did try, and some effectively, hit you with the counter, this week you face a team that, this is their bread and butter. It's counters, powers, and it still is, even with Bill Snyder retired.
Yeah, so there's two things. First is that we played it differently technique-wise in the second half than we did in the first half, and so we predicted inaccurately how we could effectively stop the counter. We figured out it wasn't working like everybody else, and we changed the technique and the way we were defending it for the second half. Kansas State is a big pull team. They like to block down and pull, powers, counters, a lot of things with quarterback read zone. So in my opinion, they don't run a play that is just a run. It's got a quarterback read on it as well. Different kind of counter, a little bit, some different sets and stuff, but overall kind of the same concept.
And a lot of times with RPOs attached.
Yes, yeah, and this last guys, they were doing all RPOs attached also.
Mike, what's the challenge not knowing what their quarterback situation is? They played 3 different guys last week.
Martinez will play. I called up there today, and they said he's going to play. The big joke around the office is I've done this for so long, I can generally predict injuries pretty well, our guys and the other teams, and from what I saw, it looked like to me that he'll play. Looked like he had something, felt pretty good, went out, tried to play, didn't really feel right, took himself out, 6 days, rest. I'd say he'd be the starter. But to answer your question, to be fair, we have to prepare for him.
You got a good health report similar to that on your own players?
I don't even ask anymore. I just mentioned, I said, you guys let me know when we have less than 5 linemen. And then we have to start making some real adjustments.
No joke, but as the game was going on, and I'm fortunate I get that view, nobody panicked. And I mean, the crazy thing was, and I know one of the O'Colly reporters, I think one of the brothers, I'm not sure which one because I can't tell them by voice, mentioned a report on the radio about JPR being out. I was told JPR was out, and all of a sudden, JPR's back. I mean, you had
Who?
some pretty Richardson.
Oh.
You had some.
I thought you were talking about a lineman. I thought I
resiliency
didn't even know we had a kid named JPR.
going on down there.
Yeah. Guys are in and out. We're very, very, very cautious with the head injuries. So we had 3 calls from up here that said we need to check people out. That's what we do. And that's how that takes place.
Talking about John Paul, though, I mean, it seems like every week he's taking a big hit over the middle, but always coming up with the ball. But like, what can you contribute his toughness to?
I mean, I started watching John Paul when he was a junior. I saw tape and then did a little research on him. And some kids are cut different than others, right? I mean, he's been around it all his life. He's been a gym rat. Likes to play the game. The physicality side of it and or what could happen doesn't concern him. It's really hard to play this game nowadays if you don't play it that way. And he just plays and worries about the rest of it later.
Do you kind of put him in like the Dylan Stoner category? In terms of not just play, but who he is?
A lot of similarities, very athletic. Dylan played a lot of positions in high school. JP played quarterback, played a little running back at times, played receiver. Toughness, I'd say there's quite a few similarities. You're right.
Because he didn't play a ton of receiver, did you know exactly how good his hands were coming in?
Yes. Yeah, we knew that from his summer stuff.
I think this was Colin Clay's first start for you guys. He seemed to play pretty well. How do you
He did. He got better as it went on. He got pushed around early. We got pushed around early. All of us did. We got out of gaps. We got pushed around. Wrong team to do that against. Whatever All-American honors that he gets, number 5, we contributed to it. But Colin got better as the game went on. And he's going to have to play. He's going to have to play 40 snaps a game for us, and he got a little bit better as the game went on.
have you seen him he was kind of highly touted coming in, obviously had the injuries, came back as well. How have you kind of seen him progress through his time?
Just slowly but surely. Those guys, y'all asked me about him in August and then in September, and they just kind of come on slow. You know, they're just, young people are more tentative now than they ever were before because they get more information. Years ago, when we played, nobody really knew how hurt you were. We didn't do MRIs. These guys know, they have a lot of information, and so they just get a little tentative, and then they kind of work through it.
With Thomas out, you started Jabbar at safety. What did you think of Jabbar there?
I mean, his effort was good and played hard, but it was new for him. So there was times that it was difficult for him to figure out what was going on.
Go ahead.
But, I mean, that's where we're at. I mean, we've got to, you got to put somebody out there, and we have to try to mix and match and do the best we can based on availability.
Was that just you saw something in Jabbar that he could play that? Because he's only played corner for you, so was it just kind of a...
Against those guys, they have tremendous speed, and so you tend to want to put more cover guys on the field just to defend the deepest throws that they would have. And so we felt like that his ability, and he's a very intelligent player, but it's still different. And so, did he play well? Yes. Was there exposure to being inexperienced at that position? Yes.
You've been somewhat hesitant to put too much on the plate of a freshman, but obviously Stephon Johnson, but even Ollie Gordon in the second half, those guys kind of cross a threshold for you as far as, hey, they're growing up, they're starting to see this.
I would say 6 exceeded my expectations of the way he would play in that particular situation. The moment didn't get too big for him. That doesn't mean he's arrived yet. He has to do it multiple times, continuously and consistently. And Zero's been fine. I mean, he's plays good and competes and goes out and plays on special teams. And, he got lit up down there at Waco and fumbled and kind of got that out of his system. And it's not too big for him either. So you don't want to hang your hat on many of them doing it, but they're doing pretty good.
Coach, to follow up on what Robert just said there, it's been kind of almost back-to-back years you've had younger underclassmen receivers contributing. Is their success coming from having a veteran like Spencer, or is there something else that's allowing them to be so successful so early?
They're getting way more reps than they should be getting at this stage in their career by default right now because we're beat up at that position. And other guys got to play, and so they 6 played better than I thought he would in that game. I thought he would play okay, but he made a lot of plays. If you were watching the game and you lived on the East Coast, you would not have thought he was a freshman. So he's coming along. Unfortunately, we've had to throw those guys in the fire. He should be playing like 8 or 10 plays a game right now, but we don't have that luxury. So they're learning on the run would be the best answer to that question.
Did Jaden Nixon earn any more snaps after the way he carried the ball?
We got him another shoe. and taught him actually how to tie it. But you guys asked me last week, and I told you that he would play a little more, and he brings a little different dimension. We know what Dom's going to do, and then he brings a little bit different running style, and so he's maturing. He's growing up. We need him to get 8 or 10 carries a game, and because he plays on a lot of special teams, and we can throw him the ball. He does a good job in the game. He didn't at TCU, but otherwise he catches the ball pretty good.
How many guys do you have that can throw besides Spencer on your offense right now? You tried it multiple times with different
You
guys.
talking about all positions?
Yeah, I mean,
I
it's
guess 1, 2, probably 5 guys that I know of that can throw pretty good.
You count Nixon on that list?
It's awful. Can't throw a lick. He throws okay, but not as good as some of the other guys we have.
Mike, after a win like that, you often talk about your culture.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about the culture you've built, does that stem from year one, 18 years?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there a time when you sort of recalibrated, because you're winning in ways now you weren't winning when you were winning big 10 years ago?
Yeah, so the the core of it, the basic principles have stayed the same. And as I've gone through this a lot of years, I learned I didn't really know. I just accidentally never changed the core, and then made tons of mistakes and then corrected them. And then we developed a culture that takes a long time to instill in the players. And it's even a little more tricky nowadays because social media has changed the perception of everybody, all of us in this room and everybody in that building, and the way people see people and the way people see themselves and so on and so forth. And for that, we have to make more adjustments. But I have been very fortunate that most of the people that are in that building with me have been with me a long time. And so this thing runs itself. The culture runs itself. I don't really do much anymore. I just kind of stay out of the way and try to govern the main people. And there's not any way in the world we could have won that game if we didn't have that culture that we have here, because in most cases when you're looking out there at the personnel we use at times, they're going to panic. The coaches panic and players panic because they look out there and they're like, okay, you have 2 on the field, you have 3 on the field, you have 6 on the field, you have 6 on the field on both sides of the ball. We have guys on the field that shouldn't even be lining up and playing, much less against Texas. And so the coaches do a good job of the one thing I ask them to do: be patient, have poise, and teach and coach and correct. I don't like screamers. I don't like yellers. I don't like guys that are running out of control. Your veins are popping out of your head, because then the kids panic. That's the only thing I ask them to do, and they do a good job. I don't do anything in the games. I just stay away from everybody and let them do their jobs. If they ask me to go for it on 4th down, I usually say no. If every once in a while I say yes, that pretty much wraps it up for me.
Derek said when he got here, he found a blue-collar mentality that he didn't necessarily know about from the outside. Mm-hmm. Really, you had some blue-collar elements in 2011, but you also had a lot of fireworks and all kinds of
NFL
stuff.
players.
Have you sort of built upon the blue-collar attitude and stuff, and are you more proud of what you're accomplishing now because of that?
I went back and looked at some games from 9, 10, 11, 12, even up until the Chelf year. I don't know, I think 15 or something. 13. What year? 13. I went back a week or so ago and looked at some of those games and just watched us, and we were much more blue collar then. We were tough. We would knock you on your ass, and we'd get up and do it again, and we were physical. Now, we weren't as effective throwing the ball, except when Whedon was here. Those other years, we were very average passing the ball, but we were tough. And then we got that back again the Chelf years when we were rushing the ball and we were tough, the JW years. We're not that physically tough now, but we're a different style of offense. But it's not like we're soft, but we have to get that edge back in this offense in order for us to continue to be that way. And we're working at it. We've just had some inconsistency up front health-wise, and then a little bit on the perimeter that's kept us from getting back to where we really need to be, where we're really blue-collar and physically tough, which we can be in the style of offense we have. And then what that'll do, Barry, is that forces the defense to be tough, because then they're going to get their butt kicked in practice if they don't toughen up. That's ultimately what the goal is, in my opinion, because it's still a tough man's game. The toughest teams, mentally or physically, if things are equal, usually win in most cases in this game.
Mike, I don't know was it Switzer who came up with the line, it's not the X's and O's?
It's a Jimmy and a
Was
Joe's.
that Switzer?
It's a famous Switzer line.
How do you?
I'll give you another one real quick. Y'all heard the one, you might have, when they went for 4th down against Nebraska. Did I tell you that story? And it was the Billy Sims era. Have I not told you all that one? And I got this secondhand. I didn't get it from Coach Switzer, but it's secondhand. Galen Hall is the coordinator, right? They were going for a 4th down. And Switzer clicked on the headphones, which he rarely did, and said, whatever he called him, Galen or Coach Hall. He said, I understand we're going for this. It's 4th and 1 or 2. He said, I don't care what play you run. I just want to make sure Billy Sims has the football. And that was one of my favorite lines with him. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I was told. It's probably a good call. Anyway, got 4 yards. So, go ahead.
So to that point, it helps to have a Billy Sims or
Yeah.
out here in your case, someone like Spencer or Colin Oliver making play, Jason Taylor making a big play in a big moment. I get that's the kids, that's their performance. But is Saturday also not a reflection that coaching makes a pretty big damn difference in this
What
game?
does?
Coaching on game day.
Yeah, I mean, yes. The coaching, in my opinion, at this level is more challenging now and more important than it ever has been in dealing with personalities. Coaches, how much money am I making? How long is my contract? NIL, why am I not playing? My parents say I need to go in the portal. How come I don't have more NIL money? It's a big challenge now. And it's almost like being a general manager of an NFL team would be my guess, because you're managing a lot of things and not a lot of football. That's what's different nowadays, in my opinion. Just from an outside looking in, I see inconsistencies and inexperience and things that can contribute to havoc based on all the different moving parts if you can't try to keep them all together at once. That's just my opinion.
You're talking about behind the scenes, off the
Oh,
field
yeah.
stuff, the site games you guys got to play.
This stuff out here is the easy stuff.
But it shouldn't be taken for granted because that out there, penalties were 14-0 Saturday.
Well, but that's your discipline on a daily basis to get to that point in practice. Like, we referee our own practices in teams, and then we run the offense or the defense for every penalty they get at the end of the day in the spring and in August. We don't do it during the season because we don't have the legs left. To try to create some accountability and some discipline. And that's the Coach Snyder theory, right? It's the penalty yards and the special teams yards that people don't know about, that I ended up beating you by 2 points because I had 80 more yards than you did in those 2 areas. That's what I learned from him, which I've said from day one. I'm guessing he won a lot of games because he was disciplined.
How much of that discipline is tied to the culture and things that have been developed over the years?
It all turns its full circle. It's the best example I give when I talk to the staff is when you're raising children, if you let them get away with anything at any given time, like my third one, he's got away with everything because I'm tired. I'm honest. I'm just tired. He comes in a little late. It's okay, or whatever. If it doesn't have to do with respect, then I waver a little bit. So he's not as he hadn't been raised as structured as the other two. It's the same thing with the players. Any little thing we let them get away with, we turn around next week and it'll be worse. And so it's a full-time job to keep 140 of them accountable, but then also understand there's personalities we're dealing with, and nobody is the same. I think coaches for years try to coach everybody and treat them the same. None of us are the same. None of us in this room are the same. And that's the adjustment that has to be made, in my opinion, nowadays, is who are they, where do they come from, what's their makeup, how do we fix this and make it better, and it all fall into our culture. That's the real challenge nowadays. It's a full-time job.
Along those lines, you've obviously been a part of developing what's gone on here, but even going back to your playing days when you were coaching as a coordinator and Bill Snyder took over K-State, what they've become. When somebody says Kansas State to you, what do you think of?
Well, you think of Coach Snyder when they talk about it. But it's the discipline and the simplicity and the toughness and play hard that he created that has carried them through. You see a lot of it on their teams now. That he was able to create. And you can go back to, I used to go to watch Coach Sutton in practice in basketball, and he coached this defense and he coached these certain things, and then they were really good at it, and they held him accountable for that, and that's what they did. It's all the same. It's full circle.
You, in preseason or early in the year, you talked about Kendall Daniels.
Mhm.
Said he was a wild thing. Has he changed that? Have you seen him evolve since the early season?
He made his mistakes in this game, but you can see where we need to keep patting him and telling him to keep going. Attaboy, get back in there, because he's going to do things that are going to wow us before it's all said and done. If he stays humble and if he stays focused and he understands the concept, and I think he will. But he'll make his mistakes, but he's also doing things you're like, ooh, that's pretty good.
Obviously, getting on the field this year is important for him.
Mhm.
You don't get to this point without the playing time. But how do you feel like last year not playing has gotten him to where he is now?
Well, he developed in the weight room, and he started to learn our culture, and he's come in and adapted in our culture really fast. He's very eager to learn. He's humble. He's unselfish. So that growing that he went through, because he came from a smaller area, it's a little bigger adjustment. And he's now learning, and he's made the transition to the field. Now he's trying to play to the speed of the game. He's getting a little bit better. But he was fortunate that he didn't have to get on the field last year with McAllister and Peel and all those guys, Bernard, all those guys that were here. He didn't have to get out there because he was not ready last year.
Does John Michael Flanagan help that with the culture, being a veteran guy? John Michael Flanagan, who was on
Yeah. He's awesome. He's a culture guy. He's accountable. He's disciplined. He's going to be in the right place. We can trust him on special teams. He's yes or no, sir. He's going to do everything we ask him to do.
Special teams, in your review of the tape, or most of the things you saw that went wrong there, correct?
Yeah, so the punt block is we blocked the wrong guy. Typical, one guy tried to do another guy's job, and that's what happened. And when you play them, you're more vulnerable because they're all fast. A lot of times, if that would happen before, we still wouldn't have got it blocked, but mistakes against them are going to glare on special teams. Their returners are really good. We missed a couple tackles. And, when you play them, you're always just kind of holding on special teams. So a couple of assignments, mainly just they're pretty fast.
Brandon after the game, and he still claims the ball didn't hit his leg, but he felt accountable.
You know what Pat Jones would say about that?
Yeah.
The referee did this.
Yeah.
So guess what? It hit your leg.
leg.
That's right.
I mentioned to Dave and John on the broadcast, Spencer's got to go to a guy, because a guy like that, when he feels he let down his teammates, he'll go to great lengths to make plays.
Oh yeah, he came back on the kick return and ran it back to the 50 or whatever. I mean, he's going to do that. I mean, it eats on him. So you just tell him, hey, let's keep rolling. It is what it is. Can't fix it. So.
I don't know what's wrong with Harper or Taylor, but if you're without both of those guys, what do you do, manpower-wise, in the secondary?
We'll have to have that discussion in the morning. I just walked out of there, and they're doing some other stuff, and we should know more by 11 o'clock tomorrow, and then we'll have to try to, I'm not sure. We'll have to try to decide what to do at corner and safety. I mean, there'll be some young guys in the game, I can tell you that.
How'd your corners hold up?
They did pretty good.
Considering
Yeah.
Muhammad wasn't playing.
Yeah, they did pretty good. I just watched the first half again with them. And then when the first half was over, I said, I got to go. They wanted me to watch the second half with them. I said, I've seen enough. I'm out. They played pretty good. Honestly, they did. There's some things they need to do better, but wasn't bad.
Back to the special teams quick. The last time you guys, I think it's the last time you guys punted, they were bringing everybody. Tom got it off pretty quick. Was that just awareness on his part, or was that somebody tells him?
Yeah, so he was at 162 on that, and on 162, that you can almost not block anybody, and the punt's going to get off. And so he knows that he needs to be at under 1.7 in that particular time. Same thing we did at Baylor, same concept. And we didn't use our tight punt because I was concerned about their returner. So we went ahead and spread out and ran guys down the field because I was concerned about being in a tighter punt, which is a safer protection, but you can't get out and cover as well. And it doesn't take much for him if he gets an open seam. So we went to a regular punt formation and just told him he needed to get it off in less than 1.7. And he's good about that.
Has Cobb surpassed your expectations you had from him?
Cobb's playing good. Cobb makes a lot of plays. He has the ability to make unorthodox plays, which is good. You can't coach those things. He still does some things that he won't do next year at this time. He's young, but he's a good football player. He's tough. He's been a good leader for us. He doesn't run his mouth. He just plays, and he's getting better each game.
What do you see, Mike, so far from Kansas State's defensive line?
They're good players. They're tough and gritty. They're a 3-down team basically. Their inside guys are going to be flat back, try to push you back. They have good edge guys that are pretty active on the outside, and I think they're well coached. I studied them quite a bit yesterday and pulled up just out of curiosity, I pulled up the defense coordinator just to kind of do a little research on him. And, he's been with him a long time. He was with him at the other school. Then he came down and he flipped from a 4 to a 3 down, which is not an easy transition. He's done a good job with it. And those edge guys will get some push. They'll get around the corner. 91, I think, is the one guy's number. He's got really good hands, and he gets the tackle's hands off, dips his shoulder, and gets around the corner. So we have to work hard to not let them get pressure in a 3-man rush. It becomes a numbers game real quick. So hopefully we can protect a little bit if they're going to be in a lot of 3-down front.
Your defensive line, it looked like Trace Ford, I don't know how I graded out, but it looked like he might have had his most effective game.
Yeah, he's pretty effective. Yeah, he showed up a lot.
What did you like about him?
He was active. He played within himself. Sometimes Trace is, kind of like an Energizer buddy, he's bouncing around, but he played within himself. When he's focused and playing within himself, because he's very athletic and he's active and he's strong, he can be difficult to block because of the nature that he brings, and he had a good game. They're big on the perimeter. They're tough to deal with. Both those tackles are going to be first-round picks in my opinion, and so that's an issue there. And then they used the big tight end, the lineman that they got in 92 is basically a lineman, and then they put Zero in there, and he's athletic, and that can be a little bit of an issue. But Trace handled it all pretty well. And it was good. I think he only had 42 plays, but that's about what he needs, now that I think of it, 40 to 50 at the max. But he did play well.
Is part of Trace's game to get in the opponent's head a little bit? Seems like he's getting in the head of some of these guys lately.
Yeah. Because he's unorthodox in what he does, it kind of messes with you a little bit, I would think. And Trace is a very emotional player. He gets... if they hold him a couple of times and they don't call it, he's going to tell the referee. He's telling him, and the ball's being snapped over here. And where Trace You need a 5 technique, you know, and he's trying to explain to him the guy was hooking him. I said he did hook you, but they didn't call it. But he's a little unorthodox, but he's getting better and better and gaining confidence.
Yeah, because he was out by himself at one point in the middle of a Texas scrum.
Yeah, he was talking to the other people, yeah.
Mike, you played at K-State back when there wasn't much atmosphere. It was sort of dreary place. Now you go up there and it's like here, just everybody's cuckoo.
Yeah.
How have you ever reflected on? You've often reflected on how much you guys have built.
Right.
A great game day atmosphere. How about in Manhattan? What they
they're Stillwater, what you saw the other night, and then Manhattan, and then Iowa State, and it's full. The crowd, they do a good job with their students. It's the atmosphere, and it's a great college environment. And back then I'm sure you remember covering games out there. They had the old turf field and then the painted Wildcat in the middle. That was like, would rip your skin off. And it stayed that way for all 4 of my years. And it was just, gosh, I don't know, there was nobody at those games. They've made as big a transition in college football as anybody, in my opinion, from where it was back in probably up, through the mid-'90s. It was still that way. Because Coach Snyder came in '89. So I don't think they got going up there till probably at least 93 or 4 or 5 before anybody started showing up probably. But that transition's been big. It's been great for our conference, let's put it that way.
Did you get upset with the band there once for playing too long?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. I need to check on that. We're going down that way. The band's sitting there on the field, and we can't hear the band. The rule is when the quarterback addresses the formation, that you have to stop. And the band kept playing, and we jumped off sides. So I need to make sure that doesn't happen. But yeah, I forgot about that.
Did that happen at Baylor this year too?
Kind of. I was heading that direction. Did you see me going down there? Yeah. We were on the inside the 5, and they were playing, and we were addressing the ball. And those are costly penalties because, it's first and goal on the 4 is a lot different than first and goal on the 9 from a play calling standpoint. So, but they stopped.
Anything else?
All right, guys, thanks.